Hello. Thank.
How are we going to talk like a friends
Sure.
or officially?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay,
It's your game.
Let's do like a friends.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Sure.
You're the top ufologist for Canada, United States, I believe.
Well, I don't know. I work hard. I try to.
I said I follow you, and I have impression that you never sleep.
This is all
You're online all the time. Something is coming.
This is all I do. Now this is what I do 24 hours a day. I think it. I work it all the time. I don't really. Not interested in anything other than this. So I do spend a lot of time doing it. I do spend a lot of time thinking. So what I do, as I described in my lecture, is what I do is I do a lot of walking. So I walk, like I'll walk across the river here to the other side, go have coffee, I walk back, 2 miles, walk 2 miles in the afternoon, back, 2 miles in the evening, walk back again, and I think about these things. And then these things pop into your head, or I watch the last lecture that was just here, where the guy's talking about these apports, these things that fall out of the sky, that people are in a room and suddenly something falls in the middle of the room. Mm-hmm. And so I've gotten into this. And so when I hear that, then I talk to him, and I think about it all the time. I think about what's going on. I start to look for material, who's worked on apports, these things, what kind of research there are, and I just sort of let myself follow the latest thing, whatever it's come, and it's almost like I'm getting directed.
This is Ivan Ivanov, and you are watching UFO Disclosure Bulgaria. We have the documents. We have the witnesses. True stories about UFOs, visitors from outer space, and other worlds.
Okay, now you got to work on this. So this comes, and I get these synchronicities. So about 3 days ago, I had these things with these apports that are falling out of the sky, and I started to do some research, and I found out that one of the main places where they have a collection of these apports is at the University of Manitoba, which is 2 miles from my house. And I went, whoa. Oh. So this is a synchronicity. So now I got to wait to go home to look at all these things that collection of these weird things. And then this guy lectures on this Mira from Great Britain lectures on, and he talks about it. And then the Rangers, if you saw these Rangers, they talked about the 65 coins that all landed flat up. Correct. And you see these synchronicities, like suddenly everybody's talking about this. So I'm trying to interview these people to get this one little aspect of the story and work on that. So I'm always thinking about it all the time.
You know Paul Carrier?
Who?
Paul Carrier?
Yes. Yeah.
What's going on with UFO and disclosure in Canada?
Nothing. As far as I know, like people ask me, and I say, what people have to realize is that this idea that there's disclosure, the government is talking about it, there's documents and stuff, is an American phenomenon. I live in Canada. I'm sure in your country there's no governments with leaked documents and stuff. This is an American phenomenon. So in Canada, because I did the American presidents all the time, people say, well, what's going on in Canada? And I say, I have no idea, because the government doesn't talk about it. And that's where I say that when it comes to disclosure, if the government wants to disclose, they can stand up and talk about it, and they're not doing that. So they're not disclosing, and they're not covering up, because if they want to cover up, they do what they do in Bulgaria or Switzerland or Canada. You just shut up and stop talking about it, and the story goes away. So in Canada, I've been for 43 years, worked on the subject. I really don't know. Paul Hellyer told one story. Well, he told a story in 1967. In 1967, he gave a lecture, a speech, when he was the defense minister. And he said he was opening a UFO landing base. So it was like a tourist thing that they had built, the UFO landing base. And he said this is the first time there was a UFO landing area opened up in 1954 in Canada. And nothing landed, therefore there's nothing to the UFO subject. So I questioned him later about this. I said, well, how does this work? And he said, I don't remember, I didn't write the speech. I don't remember anything about it. I don't know. I just gave the speech. Somebody else put the material on the speech. Then later, about 3 years ago, I was with him in Brantford, Ontario, and then he said something else that's significant as to what the government knows. He said that he had been given a phone call by an Air Force guy, And the Air Force guy said, the head of emergency management wants to talk to you. He's dying of ALS, of Lou Gehrig's disease. He wants to talk to you. You should talk to him. He wants to tell you something. So Paul doesn't phone the guy. The Air Force guy phones him back and he says, the guy's about to die. You better talk to him. So Paul phones him up, and the guy says, as the head of emergency management, so if there's a major disaster, a war or something, the government has a department that takes care of, what do we do? Do we put money in the banks? What happens to the stock market? All these different things that can go wrong in a disaster. Here in the United States, it's called FEMA, the FEMA organization. So in Canada, it's called emergency management. So the head of emergency management tells Paul, it's for real. I was taken to the CIA. I was signed a bunch of documents, and I was allowed to go to Area 51, and I was actually inside one of the crafts that they have at Area 51. That makes sense, and that's all he told Paul. He said, I'm just telling you, Paul, this thing's for real. As a head of emergency management, it would make sense, because if there's a disclosure, if the aliens suddenly land on the White House lawn and everybody suddenly goes, it's for real, a lot of people may panic. You never know what's going to happen once this comes out. So head of emergency management would have all sorts of plans. What do we do if this is for real? They say, we don't know if UFOs are real, but if it's for real, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, and they will have a plan as to what they're going to do. So with Air Force bases, all the embassies around the world, and they're all secure, it can make sense that the head of emergency management would know. As what happened in the United States, I wrote an article on what's called the Kecksburg crash in 1965. There's Air Force documents, the Blue Book documents, actually describe communications, because the ones in Washington are all bombed out. So they moved them to the tribe. A phone call coming from what they called green grass, code green grass. So when we looked this up, what it was what's called Mount Weather, outside of Washington, D.C. This is where if there's a nuclear attack, they take the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and they move them to this underground facility called Mount Weather. And that's where this phone call came from. When this crash took place in Pennsylvania, they said, we've got a report of metal material found in Michigan. So this phone call came in from the president's bunker, where the president would be taken if there's a nuclear attack. That was the head of FEMA. That's where it is. So it makes sense that in the United States, FEMA is running this thing, and it has communications, like on the underground bunker. So if there's a nuclear attack, they have connections to all the underground base where nobody can knock out the communications, and the president and the government can continue to run the government. So it makes sense that emergency management in Canada and the United States is a key part of what this is all about. They have to be involved. It's not that they really care about UFOs, but if there happens to be UFOs, and if there happens to be an attack by UFOs or something happens, these are the people that know, and they have plans as to what to do if there is a major disclosure and there's a panic breaks out.
Okay, I would like to ask you to say very clear that we talking for real things.
Yes.
Because in Bulgaria,
yes,
people still think, not everybody, but most of the people, they still think that maybe this is kind of science fiction.
Yeah.
Can you say very clear?
Yes.
According to your knowledge.
Yes. Well, what I basically do is what I did is I had a UFO sighting in 1975, and when nobody would publish my story, all I was interested in is somebody must know what's going on. And that's why I went to study the Canadian government, and I went through documents. I talked to the wife of the guy who ran the Canadian government flying saucer program from 1950 to 1954. From there I went and I talked, we did interviews. We tried to get a former president of Penn State University, major Ivy League engineering university in the United States, 14 honorary doctorate degrees, chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis, the top military think tank, and worked for President Eisenhower, very high-level guy, and he knew what was going on, but he wouldn't talk to us. He would give us little rhymes and riddles. And then I went to study the President of the United States. So what the information I've always looked at is the highest level person that I can talk to. If it's the President, whoever it is, watch what the high-level people know about it, because you and I on the street really don't know, but somebody has to know what's going on. So I've never really worried about stories or sightings or anything like that. All I want to know is who really knows. And what I do now is I do a lot of work with experiencers. So a lot of people say, I've been on board the ship, I've actually interacted with the phenomena. And there are 4,200 of these people who have actually filled out a survey of 600 plus questions. And when you look at their answers, you have very clear things that these people are being told. So that's where I go. I try to go for the most key information that's valid. It's not one story. So you can have one person, for example, during my lecture I talked about people who claim they've been able to fly the ship. So if you've got one story, it can be science fiction, the person made it up. I've got 50 people all telling the same story, and I put these together and I show people they're all telling the same story. So you get these patterns across the board. So I'm looking for the best evidence I can, because I had a sighting. I really don't care about sightings. People, they're having a sky watch tonight. I don't care. I've seen something. I don't want to see anything. I just want to know what's going on. I want to know what the phenomena is, and you have to go to the highest level of information that you can.
Do you work with the paradigm of this project of Stephen Bassett or not?
Stephen Bassett and I, he's interacted with me because he's into the political end.
Yeah.
So because I ran the presidential UFO website, we had a lot of interactions. We have a difference in what we think disclosure is going to happen, different aspects. But yes, he supported me very much in the very beginning when I had my presidential UFO website. Mm-hmm. He posted, I recovered from the Clinton administration. I went after the Clinton administration for documents because I heard that the Clintons were interested. I had heard that they had dealt with Lawrence Rockefeller, a big billionaire. Yes. And so I filed a Freedom of Information Act request asking for the government documents on the Rockefeller Initiative. I was lucky enough that I got 1,000 pages of documents. So I published, I did some articles on these documents. Rockefeller says to the government says to Rockefeller, these documents to go back and forth. Steve Bassett put them on his website because he was very interested in this whole thing. So we've worked together in that regard, but he's doing a different sort of thing. He wants disclosure of the thing. I'm really not that much, disclosure's fine, but I would rather know what's going on. And so I'm doing a different sort of thing. We're going down different patterns. We're both working towards getting the answer for the people as to what's really going on here and trying to find the best information. He's not so much a researcher as I am. He's more a political lobbyist. So he's trying to force the government to disclose, to answer it, and I'm trying to expose the people in the government who actually know. So I spend time chasing what's called the weird desk at the CIA. Ron Pandolfi and this fellow you mentioned, Alien Protocol, is also, and I got him involved, and he's now interacting with the guy who runs the weird desk. So this guy may tell you stuff that's not true, it's partly true, partly false, but we both realize that this is a top scientist in the CIA. This is the guy that if the government knows the UFO subject, this is the guy that has all the classified material. He knows what's going on. He knows who all the pieces are. He knows what all the programs are. And so we spend a lot of time trying to deal with this guy. I've sort of given up because there's so much disinformation in what this guy's putting out that it's very hard, because that's the thing, is you're not releasing classified material, so you're releasing material that's partly true, partly false. So the story gets out and you hear about Area 51 and then you can't believe this guy's telling the truth. And what they do is they put the story out, but they have things that, like trap doors where it falls apart and everybody goes, oh, that story's not true.
Yeah.
And then they give up on the story, but the story got out. Area 51 did have a live alien. It did have the crafts there, and we know this from multiple witnesses that for people like George Knapp interviewed. So when you hear George Knapp, and George Knapp's got 25 witnesses that all were inside Area 51 and were telling him pieces of the story, that's valid information. That's very clear. He won 20-some Emmy Award-winning pieces, very high-level journalist. So those are the people that I sort of interact with, and I think we've moved a long way in terms of what I had in 1975. What I knew in 75, what we knew is nothing. Now at least we have some understanding of the fact that the government has now admitted that they are actually studying the subject, and we understand that their Area 51 probably did some back engineering. They're trying to back engineer this stuff. We know an awful lot more than what we knew in 1975. In 1975, there's no discussion about crashes, no discussion about alien autopsies, there was no discussion about Area 51, none of that stuff. All it was in 1975 was someone saw a light flying through the sky, that was it. We were just watching lights fly around the sky. Now we're more into understanding us, that we are running out of time, that we are on the verge of destroying the world.
If you can imagine that you're on the stage,
Yes.
and the Europeans is watching you right now, I mean Bulgaria now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what will be your message to them?
Well, my message would be to listen to the people, the experiencers, then to share that message, to get that idea, even though it may not be heard by the United States or by the U.S. military, is that we really don't want any more Cold War between Russia and the United States. We want people to get together. Because at one point, after the Cold War ended, it was like, you know, all the satellite countries for Russia sort of separated, and it was the Berlin Wall came down, and it was all where we're going to work together, we're going to trade, we're going to do all this kind of stuff. And then it got shifted away again, back to this thing where we need an enemy. And if we don't have an enemy, we're going to make up an enemy. So the people in Bulgaria and Europe should continue to maintain, do not listen to this message coming out of the United States of America. There are no enemies. We are not at enemy with Bulgaria or with Europe, and even in Canada. Even in this last little bit, the Canadians, who are always like the peacekeepers in the world, really don't care about anything. We really just, you know, live our lives and stuff like that. Even Donald Trump defined us as a threat to national security. So then we became an enemy. And I say, well, when the Canadians become an enemy, then it's crazy stuff. But that's the way it works, is you have this division, and that's a capitalist idea. So you have a socialist idea. What the Americans are very afraid of is the socialism idea, that we all put in what we can contribute, we take out only what we need from the system. This sort of idea. In the United States of America, it's competition. It's like, I got to get more than you. It's competition, me versus you. And that's where this motivating thing that's coming, which causes the division. That, you know, if you have more toys than somebody else when you die, then you win. And in the end, the beings are saying, no, it doesn't matter how many toys, you're leaving all the toys behind. It's a sort of more of a spiritual message. And that's what I would say that the message is. Now, whether the Europeans pick up on this and promote it, is I say the UFO phenomena, I will guarantee you, when it is all said and done, it is going to be a lot less physical than people think it is, and it's going to be a lot more spiritual than people think it is. And a lot of people won't be happy with that, because they just want a better car, a bigger car. It's like they want whoever this intelligence is, drop down here, give us the free technology, give us the engine, and then get lost. Just give us a, and that's where I said in my lecture, I said people in Canada and the United States have confused Santa Claus with aliens. They think they're coming here to give us stuff. They're not coming here to give us stuff. They're coming here to warn us. That's why they're here. They appeared in mass numbers after we detonated the first atomic bomb, because it affects the entire universe. When you start doing bombs, these atomic bombs, you're playing with very serious stuff. And so then we start to influence them, and it's like you do the atomic bomb, and you think it only influences, say, the United States of America or Japan, where you drop the bomb. You say, oh, it just happened there. But the entire universe, it was like a signal went through the entire universe. Oh, these kids have got the matches. We've got to go there. And this will go through the entire universe. So they've come in to warn us that you're at this point. And people forget it, because so much it comes down to, I want to pay my bills. It's nice, but I really don't care. I want to pay my bills. I need money. So a lot of people in the military-industrial complex will go along with it. They'll say, what am I going to do? It's my job. I'm in the military. I'm going to go along with this. And I call that the Nuremberg defense. So in World War II, when Jews were being put in the gas chamber, when the Nuremberg trial came, they said to these guys, how could you possibly put people in a gas chamber? How could you possibly do it? And they said, it was the easiest thing in the world to do. I just did my job. And that's the problem, is that people get into the system, and it's hard for you, if you're in the military, to break away and say, I'm not going to obey law, I'm going to do my own thing. You're in the system, and a lot of people will just sort of go along with it because it pays the bills, and I don't think they'll really destroy people. I don't think we're going to really drop bombs on people, and everybody just sort of goes along with it, and it sort of moves along, and then the next thing you know, we have a catastrophe where we're doing some sort of devastating bombing or whatever, and then it shifts back a little bit. but there's so much motivated by money that drives it, that drives this, and it's a capitalist thing. It's this idea of the survival of the fittest, that we have to be the fittest, and we have to, it doesn't matter if we destroy your country, because it's a battle. We want to win, and that's the thing where the aliens are trying to tell us, or whoever this intelligence is, no, that's not how it works. If you do that, the world will end, and they're telling us you're running out of time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your interest.